Thanks to YouGov for sponsoring this video. What do you like to do for fun? You know, like in your free time? Huh? Well, that's interesting. My name is Mr. Beat, and I really don't have that much free time, but when I do have free time, I like to play music. Yeah, like that. I'm sorry you had to witness that. But what about the presidents of the United States of America? No, not those presidents of the United States of America. These presidents of the United States of America. In this video, we're going to look at the hobbies of every president in American history. You know, what they did for fun when they weren't working. Or, you know, stuff they would always do whether they got paid for it or not. This video includes not only each president's hobbies, but also interests. But keep in mind, those two things often overlap. And we're going in chronological order. So we'll begin with the first president of the United States. Who was that dude again? I can never remember. It's so hard to remember the first president of the United States. While I try to remember who the first president was, I'd like to thank YouGov for sponsoring this video. Oh hey, I was just taking a YouGov survey. YouGov is a side hustle of mine. If you don't know what YouGov is, it's just taking surveys. It's really easy. I often do it when I'm waiting in line, like I am right now. I'm waiting in line to go to the bathroom at my house. And you can earn cash from YouGov surveys. In fact, I earned enough cash to buy this nifty hat. YouGov is free to join, and again, it's a great way to earn easy cash. Click my link in the bio to start taking surveys and earning cash today. Okay, I think I remember it. George Washington. If Field and Stream magazine existed in the 1700s, Washington would have subscribed to it. He was a true outdoorsman, loving to hunt and fish. However, he also liked to dance. In fact, he could dance if he wanted. He could leave your friends behind. More than anything, though, he legitimately loved to farm and tend his gardens. So scratch that. If Better Homes and Gardens magazine existed back in the 1700s, Washington would have subscribed to it. Oh wait, you youngins probably don't know what magazines are, do you? John Adams. Well, when he was younger, Adams also loved hunting, but when he was an adult, he was all about reading. He read thousands upon thousands of books. After he died, he left 3,500 of those books to the folks of his home state of Massachusetts. Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson loved cooking, winemaking, gardening, astronomy, archaeology, and music, especially playing his violin. If you want to know more about Jefferson's love of music, I have some homework for you. You shall watch this video and be wary. There might be a pop quiz. Jefferson also loved to tinker around and invent stuff. You know, like this 5-sided book stand and the wheel cipher, a tool meant to encode secret messages. Jefferson would just solve math problems for fun. And finally, just like his best friend slash worst enemy slash best friend again, John Adams, Jefferson loved to read. Well, mainly just collect books. He famously sold around 6,500 of his books to the Library of Congress after British troops burned a bunch of their books during the War of 1812. James Madison. Madison was kind of a workaholic, but when he did have free time, he loved playing chess, and apparently was quite good at it. James Monroe. Like Washington, Monroe also was a bit of an outdoorsman and loved to hunt and fish. Otherwise, though, Monroe apparently also was quite a workaholic. John Quincy Adams. Adams was a man of routine, with a full daily schedule that began well before the sun came up, and much of that included what we'd today call hobbies. He loved to walk outside, or I guess you could also call that hiking. He was also a skilled swimmer, and began many days skinny dipping in the Potomac River. Less known about JQ is that he loved playing pool. Like his dad, he also loved to read, and became proficient in 8 different languages. Andrew Jackson. Jackson loved to gamble and probably lost thousands of dollars throughout his life doing so. His favorite thing to bet money on was cockfights, in which roosters in a ring called a cockpit fought each other until one of them died. Yeah, cockfighting is now illegal. Not that Andrew Jackson would have cared. But, you know. He also distilled his own whiskey and bred racehorses. Oh, and, is dueling a hobby? Martin Van Buren. Like Washington, Van Buren loved gardening and farming. In fact, he was a homebody who rarely wanted to leave his estate, even when he ran for president. William Henry Harrison. Like both John and John Quincy Adams, Harrison was an avid reader. But other than that, I really don't know. Look, there's just not that much information out there about Harrison's hobbies, okay? I'm sorry. John Tyler. Like Jefferson, Tyler played the violin and was really into musicals. Again, don't forget about your homework. Tyler also was apparently really into gardening. James Polk. Another workaholic who didn't really seem to have any notable hobbies other than reading, I guess. He once famously said, quote, "No president who performs his duties faithfully and conscientiously can have any leisure." Dang, Polk. No wonder you died just 4 months after leaving office. Zachary Taylor. Taylor didn't like to read unless it was a history book. Apparently, Taylor was really into history. I can relate. Millard Fillmore. Fillmore did love to read, like Polk, Harrison, and John Quincy Adams. In fact, he and his wife Abigail were the ones who established the White House Library. Fillmore also loved gardening and music. Franklin Pierce. Well, more than anything, he loved hanging out with people. He might have been the most social of all the presidents. He also loved to travel. James Buchanan. Buchanan liked gardening and, you know. Abraham Lincoln. If MMA existed in the 1800s, Lincoln probably would have not only watched it, but also done it. As a young man, he loved to wrestle and rarely lost a match. In fact, he's even in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. Lincoln also apparently enjoyed pool and bowling. He watched a rising new sport called baseball. Lincoln was truly a self-educated man, which you can learn more about in this video, by the way. And a big reason why was because he loved reading and writing. He wrote poems, for crying out loud. He loved reading and writing. I mean, if he did have teachers would have loved him. Andrew Johnson. Johnson loved to make clothes. For a while, he was a tailor for a living, but even after he entered politics, he kept doing it. Ulysses Grant. Grant loved horses and horsemanship. He also loved traveling. In fact, those two interests are a big reason why he joined the military. Grant also loved playing cards, especially poker, and he'd often throw money down when playing. I'm not sure how much he ever won, but there's evidence that he owed others money after losing in poker. And finally, Grant loved to draw and paint. In fact, some of his artwork still survives, and it's pretty good stuff. Rutherford Hayes. Hayes was really into genealogy. He was basically a genealogist who didn't get paid for his research. Hayes also apparently began playing croquet while he was president. James Garfield. Like Madison, Garfield loved playing chess, and apparently was also quite good at it. Chester Arthur. Arthur was really into fishing, perhaps more so than any other president. He traveled all the way north to Canada and all the way south to Florida to fish. And this was back when traveling was much more difficult, okay? He also was apparently really into fashion. Dressing in trendy clothes was important to him, and he supposedly owned around 80 pairs of shoes. Not only that, if HGTV existed in the 1800s, he most certainly would have been a fan. He famously ordered major renovations to the White House, and dare I say, he had impeccable taste. Grover Cleveland. Cleveland was also an outdoorsman, loving hunting, fishing, and just generally hanging out in nature. He also enjoyed poker, and just generally the simpler things in life, you know, like eating and drinking. Benjamin Harrison. Harrison did not enjoy the simpler things in life. In fact, he was no fun at all. I kid. Well, kind of. There is some evidence that he occasionally enjoyed hunting, fishing, and gardening, but mainly he just enjoyed spending time with his family. Aww. That said, Harrison was the first president to attend a Major League Baseball game. William McKinley. As a kid, McKinley regularly played marbles, ice skated, swam, and shot a bow and arrow. As an adult, he really loved music, and he regularly invited musicians to the White House. Yes. Just a reminder there. McKinley was also really into poetry and golf. Theodore Roosevelt. It's well known that Roosevelt was an outdoorsman. He loved fishing, but particularly was into big game hunting. I mean, he was really into big game hunting. But he also just enjoyed hiking and being out in nature. He loved history. In fact, he was a historian, writing several books on history and helping to professionalize the field. He wrote at least 47 books and wrote dozens of articles on subjects as wide-ranging as all the different types of deer to professionalism in sports. Speaking of sports, he loved and played many sports, but the only one he was good at was boxing. In fact, he did well in boxing tournaments as a young man and didn't give it up after he entered politics. Yep, he regularly boxed at the White House, boxing anyone who was willing, including professional boxers. That is, until boxing caused him to go blind. After sparring with one of his military aides, he got hit so hard that he lost most of his sight and one of his eyes. And I was joking earlier because this is Teddy freaking Roosevelt we're talking about. Of course, he kept on boxing at the White House after that, despite the blindness. After Roosevelt finally did give up boxing, he took on jiu-jitsu. William Taft. Taft loved golf and became the first of many future presidents to make it a big part of his life. He was also the first of many future presidents to get criticized for playing golf too much while on the job, including by his friend/enemy, the aforementioned Theodore Roosevelt. After a Chilean diplomat came to visit him, Taft once said, quote, "I'll be damned if I'm going to give up my golf game to see this fellow." Taft also enjoyed baseball and was the first president to throw out the ceremonial first pitch at a Major League Baseball game on April 14th, 1910. This was a tradition regularly repeated for many years to come, although the last president to do it was Barack Obama back in 2010. Woodrow Wilson. Wilson also loved golf and baseball, even more so than Taft, actually. Incredibly, Wilson played more golf while president than any other president in American history. Wilson also loved music. Homework. In particular, he played violin and sang. He was even in the Glee Club while attending college. Warren Harding. Harding also loved golf and baseball. Harding played baseball as a young man, once playing with future major leaguer Bob Allen. As president, he invited Babe Ruth to the White House multiple times. Harding also loved poker and definitely gambled. He may have even wagered and lost a bunch of the fine china in the White House in a poker game. Now, this may or may not be true, but I like to think it's true. Calvin Coolidge. Coolidge also loved baseball, but actually his wife, Grace, was an even bigger fan who knew much more about the sport than he did. Meh, he thought golf was okay too, but was horrible at it compared to other presidents. Thanks to his Secretary of Commerce and future president, Herbert Hoover, Coolidge became a fan of fishing. More than anything, however, Coolidge loved horseback riding. Unfortunately, after he became president, he got way too busy for the hobby, so a friend got him an electric mechanical horse he could ride right at the White House. At first, Coolidge laughed off the gift, but soon he was riding it 3 times a day. Herbert Hoover. First of all, Hoover was lucky enough to take a passion of his, geology, and turn it into a lucrative career. Other than that, as I just mentioned earlier, Hoover loved fishing. He loved fishing probably more than any other president, except maybe Chester Arthur. And he was really good at it. Soon before he died, Hoover even published a book centered on his favorite hobby, writing, quote, "Fishing is a chance to wash one's soul with pure air, with the rush of the brook, or with the shimmer of the sun on the blue water. It is discipline in the equality of man, for all men are equal before fish." I always knew there was something fishy about Herbert Hoover. Oh, and I almost forgot about Hoover Ball, a sport similar to volleyball and invented by Hoover's doctor to keep him in shape. Franklin Roosevelt. FDR loved being out on the water. At Harvard, he was on the rowing team. He loved to sail and became quite good at swimming. In fact, after becoming paralyzed from the waist down, he swam to rebuild his core strength so that he could stand up. He loved mystery novels and even helped write one. As he got older, though, he got more and more into collecting stamps. In fact, folks from all around the world would send him stamps as gifts. FDR even regularly met with Postmaster General James Farley to help him design more than 200 stamps. His stamp collection was quite impressive and sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars in auction in today's money after his death. FDR also collected coins, model ships, artwork, and rare books, and almost all of it is housed today at his Presidential Library and Museum in Hyde Park, New York. Harry Truman. Truman loved to read and was particularly into history, so props, man. He played piano well and was kind of a music snob, owning more than 680 vinyl records. Yes. Regarding sports, he was the first president I could find that was really into bowling. In fact, he was so into it that he opened the first White House bowling alley, and in the West Wing, of all places. He also built the first horseshoe pit at the White House. Dwight Eisenhower. Eisenhower was one of the most athletic presidents in American history. He was particularly good at football, standing out as a halfback and linebacker on West Point's varsity team. He later even coached the sport. Later in life, he became passionate about playing golf, playing around 800 times during his 8 years as president and getting pretty darn good at it. Eisenhower was also an outdoorsman who loved hunting, fishing, and camping. When he was 58, he took up painting, eventually creating at least 250 paintings. Not bad. Better than I would have expected. He even painted portraits of, wait for it, former presidents. John F. Kennedy. Like FDR and John Quincy Adams, JFK also loved to swim. Swimming every day while he was president, sometimes multiple times a day in the White House swimming pool. When he was younger, he played tennis, basketball, baseball, and football, but after having health problems, he took up golf instead. Kennedy was also a big Boston Red Sox fan. He loved sailing. He loved reading history books and even wrote history books, most famously Profiles in Courage, a volume of short biographies of 8 senators in American history. He got a Pulitzer Prize for it, although apparently most of it wasn't actually written by him. Oops. Lyndon Johnson. More than anything, LBJ loved spending time at his ranch. He seemed to casually like a bunch of stuff, but was only passionate about one thing: cars. No, not the movie, just cars in general, including this amphibious car, logically called the Amphicar, the only civilian amphibious passenger car ever mass-produced. LBJ had one and loved driving it into lakes, especially as a joke. One time he pulled a prank on his secretary by saying the car had lost its brakes and he couldn't control it, crashing toward the water. The brakes don't work. The brakes won't hold. We're going in. We're going under, he yelled before laughing after she freaked out trying to get out of the car. Richard Nixon. Nixon was similar to Truman in that he loved both playing the piano and bowling. Nixon was even better at the piano than Truman. Not only that, he could play the accordion, violin, clarinet, and saxophone. Find out more by doing your homework, and don't say that your dog ate it. Right before he resigned, he had a new bowling alley built in the White House basement. Many people don't know that, as a young man, Nixon also played football and remained a huge football fan for the rest of his life. His friend, George Allen, coached the Washington Redskins. Nixon supposedly gave him a play to run in the 1973 Super Bowl. He also loved card games and apparently won big money playing poker, unlike poor Harding and Grant. In fact, he was so good at poker that he apparently helped fund his first campaign for Congress in 1946 with thousands of dollars he made playing it. Gerald Ford. Like Eisenhower, Ford was a gifted athlete. Many probably already know that Ford played football for the University of Michigan, but what's less known is that he turned down offers from both the Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers to play in the NFL, instead going to law school. That said, he did continue with the sport through coaching. Ford also enjoyed tennis, swimming, skiing, and golf, of course. And it's true. Ford hit multiple people with golf balls. Not because he was bad at the sport, but because he actually let people line up along the fairway to watch him. Like FDR, Ford also enjoyed collecting stamps. Jimmy Carter. Fly fishing and woodworking. That about sums it up. He has loved fishing for most of his life, but his number one hobby has to be carpentry. Over the years, he has made lots of wooden furniture. Some of them have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars at auction. And, of course, one big reason why Carter has had a long partnership with Habitat for Humanity is because of his love of building stuff. Carter also used to enjoy winemaking and hiking. Oh, and as a young dude, he played tennis, baseball, basketball, and did pole vaulting and long-distance running. Later, he also took on golf. Ronald Reagan. Obviously, Reagan loved acting and did pretty well as an actor before entering politics, you could say. As a youngin', he was a star athlete, standing out in baseball, football, and swimming. He was actually captain of his swim team in college. After learning to ride a horse through all his years acting, Reagan grew to love horseback riding and even encouraged his Secret Service to follow him around on horseback. Apparently, Reagan was also really into astrology and allegedly used astrology to make important decisions while he was president. George H.W. Bush. Bush Sr. loved baseball and even played first base for Yale's team, a team that twice made it to the College World Series. Heck yeah. Throughout his life, Bush was extremely active playing tennis and golf. He also enjoyed fishing and is the only president who really got into throwing horseshoes. He even installed new horseshoe pits at the White House. And just like Theodore Roosevelt regularly challenging visitors to sparring matches, Bush Sr. regularly challenged visitors to a game of horseshoes. When he was 73 years old, Bush went skydiving for the first time. He enjoyed the experience so much that he decided he was going to skydive again for his 75th birthday, and then every 5 years for his birthday after that, despite him nearly dying during that jump after he had trouble pulling out his ripcord. His last jump was on his 90th birthday. Bill Clinton. As you already know from your homework assignment, Bill Clinton is pretty good at the saxophone and loves jazz and rock music. Clinton also loves crossword puzzles and apparently used to do 2 to 3 a day. He could solve them in just minutes and later even created his own crossword puzzle for the New York Times. Clinton also loves sports, playing basketball as a young man and taking up golf as he got older. While president, he regularly went jogging, but these days he prefers hiking with his wife, Hillary. So many people bump into them in the woods, like my former colleague, Anthony. George W. Bush. W played baseball at Yale just like his dad, but wasn't as good at it. That said, he never had given up his passion for the sport, throwing the first pitch at significant Major League Baseball games time and time and time and time again. He even at one time was part owner of the Texas Rangers. Bush also took up golf.
I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Thank you. Now watch this drive.
Mountain biking and jogging later in life. Probably his more famous hobby in recent years, though, has been painting. Like Eisenhower, he didn't take it up until he was in his 50s. He has a unique style and has painted several world leaders over the years, including himself, and himself in the shower. His paintings have been featured in multiple exhibits and books, including his latest collection, Out of Many One, which features portraits of American immigrants. Barack Obama. Obama is the only known president to grow up geeking out on comic books. He still has an impressive comic book collection. Today, he's a pretty big fan of music, as you know from your homework, and really just pop culture in general. Though he enjoys golf and often played during his presidency, Obama's favorite sport is basketball. He's played for most of his life, even making time for it also when he was president. He famously would announce his March Madness picks for college basketball's biggest tournament and has been spotted at many NBA games over the years. Obama is also the only president to enjoy surfing, which makes sense since he grew up in Hawaii. Well, he mostly prefers kite surfing. Donald Trump. Golf, baby. It's no secret that Trump loves golf. In fact, he might just be the most talented golfer to ever call the White House home. As president, Trump had a room-sized golfing simulator built at the White House. It cost $50,000, but he reportedly paid for it himself. Otherwise, Trump loves television and not just being on it. Probably more so than any other president, he seems to have watched it all. Joe Biden.
My name is Joe Biden and I'm a car guy.
A few moments later.
like LBJ, Biden loves cars and always had
the need for speed.
And while it's nothing compared to, say, Jay Leno's collection, he has an impressive classic car collection, including this 1967 Corvette Stingray. But many don't know that Biden was a star football player back in high school. He also surprisingly loves Irish poetry. And finally, even though he's now in his 80s and the oldest president in American history, he continues to love riding his bike. Hey, it's not as easy as it looks, okay? So that's it. Those were the hobbies and interests of every American president. We made it. And if you're still watching this video, then maybe, just maybe, watching Mr. Beat videos is a hobby or interest of yours. Or maybe this is the first and last video of mine you'll ever watch. Either way, thanks for watching. So what did I leave out? What hobbies or interests of American presidents did I forget to mention? Let me know down below in the comment thingy. Also, if this is your first time here, I have a lot of videos about American presidents. There's a couple right there that you can check out. Yeah, so I think there's 2 videos there. I have faith that there are 2 videos here for you to watch about American presidents. I can't see them. All I'm looking at right now is a wall. But are they there?